Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. The purpose of this video is going to be all about driving dynamics. So this is all about how the car feels on the road, how it handles. I've done 1500, nearly 1600 miles in the car now, and I've had a really good feel for what the car handles like and how it behaves on the road. And that's what this video is all about. Don't forget to head over to my channel page and check out the other videos that I've uploaded. And if you like what you see, hit subscribe and hit the little bell icon, and then you'll get notifications when the next video is uploaded. So, as a self-confessed car geek and Land Rover Jaguar fan, I downloaded the Jaguar Land Rover Top Trumps app. And actually, they sent me through the post this pack of Top Trumps, which is quite neat, but useful to do comparisons on the stats of cars that I'm going to be driving. Down to it. I'm in the middle of a town. This is Cheltenham. Roads are reasonable, but manholes, potholes, all over the place, as per many English roads and English towns at the moment. I'm in comfort mode. It's really relaxed. It's a lovely drive. It's quiet inside. You're probably picking that up on the microphone. There's actually not too much road noise around, even though I'm only doing sort of 20-30 miles an hour or so. But nevertheless, it's a really comfortable ride. It's very easy to drive. The steering's nice and light around town, and there's no effort in just driving around. I'm going to be using my previous knowledge of several other performance SUVs which I've either owned or driven, but most specifically I'm going to be likening this to the Range Rover Sport SVR. Having owned one, done several thousand miles in one, I think that's probably, for me, that's the most direct competitor. And I say for me because I used to own one because it fitted in with what I required out of a vehicle. Now that might not be the same for everyone else, and other people are sort of saying how ridiculous comparing the two different vehicles, but actually in my mind this is slightly smaller internally, but only marginally, and so that is where I would see benchmark that I'm going to be comparing the vehicle to. And that's why just before I went away to the States, I managed to squeeze in that video with the Range Rover Sport SVR. And as I think if you've seen that video, you'll be under no illusion about the gulf that is between these two cars in terms of acceleration. I do not believe the very close 0 to 60 times between the two cars. It is patently obvious in that video, and when I drove both cars, this is much quicker in acceleration terms, and it handles much differently. I mean, the handling thing is clearly very subjective. However, the car's mass makes up such a difference, and the fact that this corner's so flat, so level. Now the Range Rover Sport is no wallowing around boat-like ride, because I've owned one. I owned one for 8,000 miles and thoroughly enjoyed it. And it's a cracking car. It's absolutely brilliant. But if you want a car that is much more driving car-like, which still has the space and the luxury and everything else, then this car really just does it for me. And with a 35 to 40,000 pound price difference, it's a bit of a no-brainer. I'd much rather, and I have done, put 75, 80,000 or 80,000 pounds into this car, keep the other 35, 40,000 pounds, and stick it into a caterer or something fun. And that's exactly what I'm going to do over the next couple of weeks. Here we go. So in those miles I've done, it's given me a really good opportunity to put this car through its paces. I've done some long journeys of just cruising around, averaged 24 miles to the gallon, so that isn't too bad for a car with an engine size of this. Now admittedly that's poodling around, some town driving, fair bit of motorway driving, not really pushing it. Clearly when you start making a lot more progress, then you see that miles per gallon drop quite considerably. But nevertheless, as an average miles per gallon in terms of driving style, that's not too bad. Comfort mode, brilliant. I'd say it's almost like any other F-Pace you've driven. It's not quite as serene and wafting along effortless as a Range Rover. I wouldn't expect it to be. But nevertheless, the sophistication is still there. that it can still be driven quite comfortably around town without getting hugely tired or hugely fatigued or just getting bashed around. That's crucially important, because when 80 to 90% of the time when you're going to be driving, this is the sort of roads you're going to be doing it on. You're not always going to be having a thrash around in A or B roads. Not had a chance to really sort of push it on a track. I mean, I did have an opportunity on the airfield when I did the SVR video, so I put it through a few of the bit of twisties then, but again, not really hammering it because didn't want to hammer too much on the brakes and everything else. Now that will be an upcoming video fairly soon, where I am planning on putting it on into a more track scenario to really get to see what this is like closer to the edge. Here we are then, slightly more open roads, dynamic, sport, paddles on. This is where the fun really starts. Straight away, I can feel the chassis and the suspension is stiffened up. Slightly more jerky on the rise and the potholes, but you kind of expect that. If there was any hint of body roll before, absolutely zero now, not a jot. This is more country B road, which gently meanders up the hill. And the very clever thing about this F-Pace is that even though it is permanent four-wheel drive, it can send up to 100% of the power to the rear wheels only, and a maximum of only 50% of the power to the front wheels. So what you do tend to have is a rear wheel bias car, which handles perfectly and beautifully, and if you really push it on, you can get the back to step out. So planted. I mean, the pull from the front is staggering. Turning is quite sharp. You stick the nose where you want it to go, put your foot down, and it just yanks you out of the corner. It's like a front-wheel drive car when you want it to be, and then just pulls you out of the corner. Wow. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the engine. 5 litre supercharged, 543 brake horsepower. Now that's slightly down-tuned from what this same engine block does in other Jaguar Land Rover models. Now they've got up to 600 in the Jaguar Project 8, and in the Range Rover SVR it's 475, so it's slightly G-tuned. Nevertheless, it is such a fantastic engine. I really love it because I've never been a big fan of turbocharged cars. I like that linear power delivery, normally aspirated or supercharged, all the way for me. Now I know they're not quite as efficient at the top end of the rev range with supercharged, but nevertheless, that extra benefit you get from low down in the rev range when you've got almost full torque from such low down is brilliant. Zero lag whatsoever. There is no lag. It's like a normally aspirated engine, because of course the supercharger put is turning all the time, forcing that additional air into the engine, unlike a turbocharger which needs the exhaust gases. Now, you don't need to keep within the turbo band or any rubbish like that, but you don't need to sort of concentrate on working the engine that much, because you've just got waves and waves of torque whenever you want it. And with only weighing just over 2 tons as opposed to nearly 2.5 in the Range Rover Sport, you can really feel that it can just put your foot down, it goes straight away. There is no kind of lurching backwards, waiting for the weight to sort of start to become overcome. It just literally put your foot down, straight away it goes. I'm a complete petrol head at heart. Ever since I learned to drive, I've been stretching myself to buying cars that I probably couldn't afford and couldn't run, just because of that love of all things that have 4 wheels and a steering wheel. The true sort of petrol head within me shouldn't really like these things, shouldn't really like the 4x4 sports vehicle. And in a sense, I do agree. Fast estates, fantastic. Audi RS6, wonderful car. But at the same time, I know the fashion is very much going from fast estates to the sporty SUVs, and I've embraced it. I've had a few of them, and I must admit, I really enjoy them. I mean, dynamically, they are compromised. Higher centre of gravity, they're heavier, they're chunkier, but at the same time, I like the styling, I like the look, I like the higher driving position, I like the ability, whether or not I use it, to be able to do like I've just done now, which is take it down a dirt track, take it down off-road. I couldn't do that with an Audi RS6. I'd knock the skirt off in no time. So in a sense, for me, that's for the very, very infrequent times that I do need to be doing something that's not quite on the road. That justifies me having a more of an SUV type vehicle. But at the same time, I need a large car because of the family. And I also need to scratch that itch, which is to be able to have the hooligan inside me satisfied by a bit of turner speed and a bit of decent handling. And that's why, for me, the sporty SUV, it does work. And I know there are a lot of naysayers out there that say manufacturers should be investing all their time, more time and energy into doing fast estates, more so than cars like this. I'd have to agree with you. But at the same time, whilst they still produce cars like this,